And we are live.
Excellent. I don't know why I have an instinct to take my papers and do that little newspaper
Right.
thing.
Thank you. Okay, thank you for saying that. Because it is so instinctual. So let me get my little papers organized. So ridiculous.
Same as when I first printed them. I was like, I feel like I need me some little cards like the talk show host has.
Wow. You want cue cards, friend? You know what?
No, not
I think cue
not
cards
the
can be arranged though. No?
no, not cards. They have their little like talking points cards that they'll have sitting at the table. So I don't know. I
Man.
think this
These
comes
grannies are
from
old. These are some old
yeah.
grannies.
Well, I was the kid that played store in front of the mirror. I just like to have all of my trappings.
Yeah. No, I get that because I'm the person who will go to the office supply store because the office supply store, you know this, like the office supply store makes me feel like I can get my life together. Like it just makes me feel like, oh, look, it is possible to have things organized and easily accessible. Look at all of the possibility for behavior
Yeah, I
here.
think for at least the first semester and possibly two of law school, I would go to the office supply a good 3 days a week, just
Wow.
after school, because that was my place of calm. Like, okay, it is possible to have it together when it feels like everything is everywhere, like it does right now. So
Yeah.
I need some pencils. I'm going to go to the office supply store and just spend a half an hour just getting my life and
Just
some
getting it
pencils,
together. Yep.
just making up stuff to get at the office supply,
You know
one at
what?
a time.
I am getting some messages that a couple of people are having. Well, I don't know if it's a couple of people, but I've gotten a couple of messages that there's some difficulty accessing the broadcast. People are. I got one message that somebody was getting the replay from last week, which is lovely, but they're not able to access the live stream just now. So Granny's gonna get on the internet and see if I can find a
Easy.
link. Hey, Shauna, I can see you. And okay, so now I think I figured out how to get comments added to the stream itself. So now the comments should pop up. Some of the comments that we had last week. Look at Granny. Look at Granny with her new technology. Okay. Okay. It is 3:30, and so in order to honor the time, I will still try to figure it out. But in order to honor time, should we go ahead and get started?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay. Why don't you introduce us while I'm trying to figure out what technology is?
Yeah, sure. So, welcome and welcome back to Legacy Alive How To series, where we are talking about legacy and the story of life and how to make sure that it is preserved and some of the tools that you need to do that. So, my name is Alicia Holland, and I am one half of Dahlia Law Group, and I am here with my law partner.
I am Jill Bates Moore. I am the other half of Dahlia Law Group. I am Carla and Ricky's baby, and they are the children of Patricia and Barbara, who are the daughters of Virginia and Vivian. And I am surprisingly more comfortable being here this week than I was last week.
Yeah, you in the internet streets now, to be sure.
Be sure. Well, I think it was because I talked to my mom. My mom was watching the last broadcast. I didn't know that, but was able to access it and was watching it, and she assured me that I'd not embarrass her. So my so I told you, my objectives are to be to be of service and to not embarrass my mama. Like those are my two those are my two things.
It's good to get a good report. That
You know,
always helps.
you know, you know. So, so there's that. Um, I one of the things I loved about last week was the way that we just kind of checked in, and I continue to think that that's really important. And so, can we do that? How are you? I'm really asking. How are you?
Yeah, I am. I'm here. So some days that feels like as much as I can ask for. I am feeling better than I do today than I did yesterday because yesterday was no bueno.
Really?
So I at least feel better. So I did the trappings of all the things that make me feel good this morning, which is always a help. So luxurious coffee and long shower. Spent a little time playing in the makeup, which is why we have full glam while still sitting in my house.
Hey.
But it makes me
Yes,
feel good.
face.
So, so that's what I got for today.
Yeah.
How are you?
I'm exhausted. I am I'm really tired. I have I have had the strangest sleep cycle. From time to time, I will get, under quote unquote normal circumstances, I'll get a little bit of insomnia. But here recently, it's just been a lot. So I have not been sleeping at regular times. I've been sleeping at the strangest of times. And I have also not been getting enough sleep. And so I can definitely feel the impacts of that on my body and in my days. But I am pleased to have things that sustain me, and to have access to those things. So yoga and sewing, which I am doing tonight. I know you all do not care about this at all, and it is not why you are here. So just thank you for holding space for me to affirm that I am turning on my sewing machine on tonight. So that's how I'm doing.
Yeah, I'm excited for the sewing machine coming on. It turns out the pretty things.
It doesn't. I made my shirt.
That matches our glasses, all the sunshine.
Thanks. All right. So we are lawyers who practice in Oakland, California, in the area of legacy and estate planning. We do this work because we see ourselves in the future, meaning we see Black people in the future, and we see you there too. And so we believe that we deserve to have a legacy that meets us there. And that means different things for different people. And so it is important to us for there to be a space where that can mean different things to different people. It's not just money. It is, money is important. You gotta, as long as things cost things, as long as there's a price to living, money is important, but it is not the only thing that is important, or the most important thing. So that's where we are and where we enter this conversation. I hate lawyer disclaimers because they always just feel so like I'm going to say some stuff to you, but I'm not going to take any responsibility for what I'm saying. So I don't like those disclaimers. They are necessary. Some of them are necessary, though. And one of them for us is that we are California lawyers. We are licensed and practice in California. So while there may be legal advice that we are giving here in a general way, that legal advice comes from a California perspective. And so in your state, it might be different. We will try to provide resources where we can that reach more broadly than California, but we are always going to encourage you to consult with a lawyer in your place, and to the extent we can, we'll also help you to find somebody who can consult with you, or some resources that'll be applicable to your state. What we're talking about today, Holland?
That was a good disclaimer. I like it, but skeevy. So we are talking today about two things. We are going to do a deep dive into the tool that we first introduced last week, the power of attorney. And then we're going to add on a piece to that where we are going to talk about something called a nomination of guardian. So as I'm thinking about the layering on, adding on, it's making me think of when you do an aerobics class and you practice your grapevine a couple of times.
I'm sorry, you do a what? What is that? And a row your boat? What is that? What is this thing? Don't come on this live stream. Don't come on this live stream and try to shade me, Holland. Please don't do it. Don't. These people do not need to know about my movement practices or lack thereof. Don't do me like that.
Oh Lord! Then you know what a power of attorney is.
Okay. All right. So our goal today is to augment your emergency preparedness kit before you go out and put your body on the line for our collective freedom. We know a number of the people that we know are demonstrating, a number of people across the globe are demonstrating in this global uprising for the protection and defense of Black lives. And one of our values is that you belong to yourself first. And so it is important to make sure that you can do that with peace of mind and responsibly. And so last week, Alicia said we talked about the power of attorney, and this week we are going to add on to that and talk about the nomination of guardian. And so I'm going to shut up now and let Alicia finish introducing what a power of attorney is.
So another term that we use for kind of the fuller name of power of attorney is a power of attorney for property and financial decision making. And what that is a document where you are appointing somebody to act as your agent or attorney in fact to be able to handle exactly those things, property and financial decision making. So one of the things that I always think is important to remember in the distinction with a power of attorney is often people think of it as a way for people to access my money and my assets, which is true. It does help with that. So if, for instance, somebody needs to be able to go in and access a bank account of yours or to get into a safe deposit box that you might have in a bank, then that power of attorney showing that they are your agent, along with them being able to prove their own identity, is what would give somebody the assurance that they can rely on that document to allow that person to stand in your shoes for them. That's what agent or attorney in fact means, is that that person is standing in your shoes on your behalf. The other thing that's important to know about a power of attorney is, in addition to being able to access things like assets of that nature, it also helps if somebody needs to be able to speak to an agency on your behalf about something that might be financial related. So things like Medicare or Medi-Cal or Social Security, a taxing authority. Again, the agent can stand in your shoes for you to be able to speak to those folks on your behalf. Did I forget anything?
I don't think so. I don't know if, sorry, that was a complete tiny thought death. Like there was a thought there and then it just gone. But in its place, another thought came, and that is the parameters of when somebody can act for you under a power of attorney, and why. Well, you already covered the why, but the when. One of the things that you can control in a power of attorney is what triggers the power. Now, for some powers of attorney, the power is immediate, and that's totally fine. And if you are going out demonstrating tonight or tomorrow or whatever, then you probably want your agent to be able to act for you right away, because in the event that something happens tonight that puts you out of commission, right? You are arrested or detained or injured or something like that. And I hate to even hear myself saying those things, but that's a real thing, and that's why we're talking about it. Then, excuse me. Then you want your agent to be able to speak for you, to be your mouthpiece right now. If you are not comfortable with that, and you want to say, pump the brakes on the powers, just a minute, then you can say, right, that my agent's power becomes effective under these circumstances. If I'm incapacitated, right, or if I get locked up, or whatever the condition is. My advice on this would be to keep it simple, because the person or people who need to understand it are not inside your mind. And so they don't necessarily know what you meant. So just keep it simple, but know that you don't have to hand over the keys to your kingdom immediately. You can put some controls on that.
Absolutely. And along those lines, there is a term that I have heard before where people talk about something called a durable power of attorney. Can you explain what that means, and if it makes a difference if my power of attorney is durable or not?
Oh, I'm here for the pop quiz. I love a pop quiz. Yes. Okay, so under California law, remember what I said earlier about the disclaimer. Under California law, powers of attorney automatically stop being effective. They just don't work anymore at all. When someone either dies, the person who is granting the power dies, or they become incapacitated. Those two things. Now, there's nothing we can do in a power of attorney about its effectiveness after death. If the person who is granting the power, we call that person the principal. If the person who is granting the power dies, that power of attorney means nothing. If, however, that principal, the person who is granting the powers, becomes incapacitated, then the power of attorney, even though California law says otherwise, the power of attorney can continue to be effective if that principal has said in the power of attorney, I want this to continue to be effective even if I am incapacitated. It's that simple, but it does have to be in there. Excuse me. And so in the form that we linked in the live stream from last week, the California form of power of attorney, you will see that language in there, that durable power of attorney language. And durable just means I want it to continue if I become incapacitated. So that language is in there. So look for it, and we will relink that. We will relink that document in the, what is it called? What's the thing called where you put the things?
In the show notes.
Thank
comments?
you. Yes, that we will put that in there. So you won't have to go to the other episode to find it.
Yeah. And the only other thing I can think about there, just to close the loop on the power of attorney, because it's a word we've said a few times, incapacity. And so what incapacity means is that someone, usually is going to be a doctor, or sometimes it can be the court, has deemed you incapable of managing your own affairs and making decisions for yourself. And so that's where that durable distinction comes into play. If that declaration has been made that you cannot do it, you do not have the capacity to understand what is happening, then the durable is what allows your agent to keep working on your behalf.
Yep.
So with that, should we switch topics and talk about a guardian nomination?
Yeah, let's do. A number of you have children and other small people who depend on you. And I don't know about you, but I take my loved ones with me, right? Even if not physically, right? Even if they are not out protesting with me, and some of your children are. And if that's the right decision for you and your family, that is the right decision. I'm a stand for that. But what happens to your children if something happens to you is a very, very real question. It's the realest, right? And so we wanted to also introduce another element to your emergency preparedness kit before you go out tonight. This nomination of guardian for your children. Now, I want to set the stage for this thing because a nomination of guardian is different than a durable power of attorney or a power of attorney. A power of attorney is effective when you sign it and what you say goes. Bada boom, bada bing. I said what I said, and that is actually it, unless there's something technically defective about that document or it cannot be enforced for some reason. A nomination of guardian is you making your preferences known to the person or people who are going to make the decision about who is going to care for your kids if you cannot. All right. And that person or people is usually a judge or a panel of judges. All right. Because in California, guardianship is a legal proceeding. And so sometimes we get the question, well, why would I do this if the decision's not in my hands anyway? And the reason is because one of the first questions a court is going to ask about who the guardian of your children should be is, what did you have to say about it? As we say in the office, what did the mama say? Right? What did the daddy say? What did the parents say about who should be in charge of caring for the children? So here's what it looks like. California has a set of forms. They are called judicial council forms, and we will put a link to the particular form we're about to talk about, but also a link to the library of forms in the what's the thing?
Show notes, comments.
Thank you. And man, why won't that term stick in my head? It's just not sticky. Okay. Anyway, we'll put a link to it in the show box. There'll be a link. You'll be able to access it. But what you'll do is very easily, you will identify who you want to stand in for you to take care of your children if you cannot take care of them for some reason. So if your children are with you, I'll give you a hypothetical. If your children are with you and you are arrested, then your children will not be going to jail with you. In all likelihood, DFS or whatever the local Child Protective Services agency might get involved if there is nothing else that can be done, if another person cannot be called. And so identifying very clearly who that person is, who should be called, right? This tool is helpful for that. But also, if a court has to appoint a guardian to take care of your children, then this nomination tells them who you want to have in that role. How will that work for an introduction, Holland?
That is an excellent introduction. I think one thing that is also important to note is when we are saying children in this regard, we are specifically talking about folks that are under the age of 18 is where this comes into play. And in California, one of the things that's happening, the reason that it is a court process and this nomination comes into play is because the court is having to step in to safeguard the safety of that child. And so where this nomination really can be helpful is knowing that the parents have nominated this person so that they don't have to work from the full use of people that might show up, they can start with that person to confirm. As long as that's a safe placement, then there can be some continuity of care for this child.
Yep. So, go ahead.
I was actually gonna switch to kind of a next point on this, so you go first.
No, that's what I was gonna do too, and I think you're gonna do it better.
Good brainwave links. So there are two pieces that can come into play when we're talking about caring for a child. In California, we call those two things guardian of the person and guardian of the estate of the child. And they don't necessarily have to be the same people. And so when you're thinking about the people that you're nominating, it's possible that you might have two of that form, one for each of those things. The way that the guardian of the person works is who's responsible for the day-to-day care of baby. So making sure that teeth are brushed, a vegetable has been eaten in relative proximity and time, that we didn't eat ice cream and cake every day.
I rebuke that. That. That is not an actual role.
In a vegetable, as long as you at least roll in a vegetable at some point. But these are the things that guardians of the person are responsible for. Guardian of the estate is responsible for any money that the child has and any of the financial property things that might come into play dealing with a child where they do not have capacity, meaning they are not legally able to sign off on things like contracts or opening a bank account without an adult signature. Mm-hmm. So if you have ever taken your kid to the doctor's office or actually, frankly, filled out any paper for a child, and you will see where it asks about a parent or legal guardian, in that context, in those forms, that's the guardian of the estate side, usually that we're dealing with, who's financially responsible for this child. So when thinking about the people to put in those roles, you can see those are two very different jobs, and so they may not be the same people. Because you might have a person that is great with the day-to-day stuff with your kid and is able to nurture your child from the physical day-to-day aspects, but that person might be terrible with money. And vice versa, your money person might be good with the numbers and can somehow make 2 pennies work harder than a quarter would, but they don't know nothing about dealing with babies and children and all of the things that they might have to do. And so that might be a place where you're going to want 2 different people in that role, and you get to make that nomination to the court so that they can have your voice being heard in advising who you think is best suited to do that role for your child.
Yeah. And we'll talk more specifically about the guardianship process and how it works, what it means, all of that. We will do that in future episodes. For the emergency preparedness purposes, I think it's going to be, if you have to prioritize, I think it's going to be most important to focus on the guardian of the person, because this is who the child is living with, where, who is getting them to their doctor's appointments, who can talk to the doctors, who can talk to the teachers, and so on and so forth. So for purposes of, tonight I'm going out, I have my, I have the legal aid or legal access telephone numbers written on myself. I am hydrated. I have the tools that I need tonight. For these 2 things to be added to your toolkit, I would focus on the nomination of the guardian of the person. And we do have a question in from Lisa, and the question is, can a 21-year-old take care of a 16-year-old sibling? Is that a default, or should there still be a document? And I have to tell you that I am in love with this question because we assume that, automatically somebody who is in the immediate family should be able to take care of the minor. And by minor, I mean somebody who is younger than 18 years old. And so the 16-year-old in this question. And sometimes it can work that informally in these emergency situations. But honestly, I wouldn't leave that to chance. I really wouldn't. I would recommend having the nomination in place. Nothing is default. The best interests of the child are the default. And if the child is not in the custody or care of the parent or parents, then who's going to take care of baby is a question that a third party gets to weigh in on. And so having that nomination in place is something I would highly recommend you do.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that, and just add to it that particularly, I find the paper to be particularly important under that scenario because of family dynamics. So I'm not going to speak for anybody else's family, but for my own, that I have some strong, loving family members who can tend to be very opinionated and are going to let you know. And so I'm thinking about that dynamic being at play with a 21-year-old. And so those older family members, older generations that feel like they know best for 16-year-old and what need to happen, I scenario playing out where they could easily come in and essentially railroad that process. And so having the parent's voice heard, that we want 21-year-old sibling to be the person to just back them up on it, may actually help communicate that to the other family members. So rather than getting in and trying to railroad the process, they can just be there to be a support to the 21-year-old and the 16-year-old because they've heard the voice of the parent.
What did the mama say?
Yeah.
What did the daddy say?
Please.
Okay. I want to be mindful and respectful of everybody's time. And so, good. I'm glad that Lisa is messaging to say that it is stressful to think about this, but much worse to not think about it. And being able to plan ahead feels empowering. So thank you for that feedback, Lisa. Thank you, Fran. I would like to leave room for more questions if there are any. And while we are holding that space, I just want to get to a quick little promo of two things. One thing is that Dahlia Law Group is on Instagram at Dahlia Law, and Dahlia is spelled just like the flower, Dahlia. Ask us one day where the name came from, and we'll tell you all about it. But the second thing that schedules for these live streams, updates, announcements, resources, a link back to this YouTube channel, all of that is there. And so we kind of envision it where the Instagram account is where we talk that good talk and promote, and this is where the substance of the conversation lives. The second thing I wanted to promote is we are starting an additional series tomorrow for grannies who are really reticent to be on the internet at all. It feels like we have just jumped all the way into this. And so since we're here, we will be talking with Bianca Jordan, who is an immigration lawyer. Her firm operates out of Boston, but because immigration law is federal law, she operates, and immigration is global. She operates and has clients everywhere. The reason we are going to be in conversation with Bianca tomorrow and some more sessions after that is because there are some particular crossovers between the work of legacy planning and protection and strategy and immigration law. And so we're going to be talking about those things. Our goal is to amplify the work that she is doing, because she is doing some important work and she is a hugely knowledgeable source, and she is going to be on this live stream for free 99. So I don't even know how you get free legal advice like this. But to amplify her work to be of service and to not embarrass my mama. Like, that is why we're going to be here tomorrow, and that will be at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. Did I miss anything, Holland?
4:30 Pacific time.
All right, take us home, friend.
All right, so those are the tools that we wanted to talk about with you today. And we, like Jill said, we will be here tomorrow at 4:30 Pacific, 7:30 Eastern. But for this legacy chat where you get the two of us, we will be back next Wednesday at 12:30 Pacific. And what time is it at your house? 3:30? 3:30 Eastern?
3:30 right? Eastern, yep, and 2:30 Central, which is where my mama is. So.
Yeah, exactly. So we are always available. Feel free to continue to leave questions in the comments. We will pop in on those, and if we don't get to them in that typed format, we'll make sure to take a look at those so we can add them to what we talk about next week. And like Jill told you, we're always available on the Instagram. So thanks for being with us today.
All right.
And please stay safe and healthy. Right. I'm Alicia signing off.
I am Jill. Have a good day, y'all.